The golden light of dawn filters through the fogged windows of Napoleon Hill's study, creating patterns of shadow and light that dance across the manuscripts scattered over his mahogany desk. It is 1937, a year that would forever change humanity's understanding of prosperity, and the Master of Wealth holds in his trembling hands a letter that arrived that morning from New York. The letter, written in blue ink on ivory parchment paper, bears the seal of an Orthodox rabbi from Manhattan's Jewish community. On those pages, written in elegant and precise calligraphy, ancestral secrets about wealth creation were revealed, secrets that had been preserved, protected, and perfected for over 3,000 years of human history. As Hill reads each word with reverence, a revelation begins to form in his brilliant mind. The principles he had been discovering and systematizing during decades of meticulous research were not new. They had been practiced by entire generations of Jewish families who, despite facing constant persecution, mass exiles, and systematic confiscations, had managed not only to survive but to prosper in ways that defied all conventional logic. What was the secret that allowed this people to transform every adversity into opportunity, every crisis into a catalyst, every obstacle into a stepping stone toward greater abundance? Imagine for a moment transporting yourself through time, walking through the cobblestone streets of Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. The aroma of sacred incense mingles with the metallic sound of coins changing hands in the marketplace. The rays of Mediterranean sun illuminate the colorful robes of merchants, negotiating with passion and intelligence. But these Jewish merchants weren't simply exchanging products and services. They were exchanging something far more valuable: knowledge, wisdom, principles, and spiritual technologies that would transform their descendants into some of the most prosperous and influential men and women in world history. What you're about to discover on this extraordinary journey are not simple personal enrichment techniques. They're not marketing tricks or speculative strategies. They are sacred codes, universal spiritual laws that have been tested, refined, and perfected during 3 complete millennia of practical application in the real world. These are the same fundamental principles that Napoleon Hill would rediscover centuries later, and that would transform the lives of millions of people around the globe. But now, for the first time in history, you'll have access not only to the modern principles systematized by Hill, but also to their millennial origin, their profound spiritual context, and their complete application as developed by the people who best understood the laws of authentic prosperity. But before we embark on this transformative journey that can change your life forever, I need you to do something crucial for me right now. If you're truly ready to transform your relationship with wealth, if you're genuinely willing to adopt a millennial prosperity mindset that has withstood the test of time, then demonstrate it at this moment. Subscribe to this channel immediately. Activate the notification bell to receive each new revelation, because what comes next has the power to revolutionize not only your bank account, but your complete understanding of what it truly means to prosper in this world. And I guarantee you won't want to miss a single word of the ancestral secrets that are about to be revealed. The historical and spiritual context, the millennial forging of an invincible mindset. To truly understand the depth and transformative power of these 10 sacred commandments of Jewish wealth, we must embark on a fascinating journey through time to the very origins of this extraordinary wisdom. We cannot speak of Jewish prosperity without first understanding the unique and extraordinary historical context in which this invincible mindset toward abundance was forged. More than 4,000 years ago, in the vast desert expanses of Mesopotamia, a man named Abraham received a divine promise that would forever alter the course of human history and establish the spiritual foundations of true prosperity. "I will make you into a great nation," resonated the voice of the Eternal through the desert silence. "I will bless you and make your name great, and you will be a blessing to all the families of the earth." This divine promise was not merely spiritual or abstract. It was also profoundly material, economic, and practical. Abraham, who had been a nomad in the arid lands of Mesopotamia, would become the founding patriarch of a people who would understand like no other the true multidimensional nature of authentic wealth. But here lies the fundamental key that Napoleon Hill would perfectly understand millennia later. Abraham's wealth did not begin with material possessions, properties, or family inheritances. It began with something much more powerful and transformative: a revolutionary mindset, an unshakable faith in the infinite possibilities of the universe, and a deep understanding of the spiritual laws that govern the manifestation of abundance. When Abraham abandoned his homeland following only a divine promise that others would have considered impossible or illusory, he was unknowingly applying the first fundamental principle that Hill would later call definite purpose. Abraham had crystal clarity about his destiny, a vision so powerful and compelling that he was willing to abandon everything known to pursue it. And that absolute clarity became the golden seed of all the extraordinary prosperity that would come after. During the following 400 years of brutal slavery in Egypt, the people descended from Abraham would face one of the most severe tests that any nation has ever experienced. They were reduced to slaves, deprived of their rights, forced to build pharaonic monuments with their own bloodied hands. But it was precisely during these centuries of apparent oppression where the indestructible character would be forged that would make them masters of prosperity. During those 400 years of extreme adversity, the Jewish people learned lessons about the true nature of wealth that no modern business school could ever teach. They learned that authentic wealth cannot be confiscated by any pharaoh, no matter how powerful, because it resides in the mind, in knowledge, in unshakable values, in indestructible faith, and in the capacity to create value even in the most challenging circumstances. They developed what Napoleon Hill would identify centuries later as the mindset of absolute persistence. No matter how harsh the external circumstances, no matter how impossible the present situation seemed, there was always a way to prosper. There was always an opportunity hidden in the midst of the most brutal adversity. There was always a creative solution waiting to be discovered by those with the wisdom to see it. When they finally left Egypt under Moses' visionary leadership, after 4 centuries of involuntary preparation, they didn't take only gold, silver, and livestock. They took something infinitely more valuable, a complete and systematized set of spiritual and mental principles that would allow them to create abundant wealth anywhere in the world, in any era of history, under any imaginable circumstance. The delivery of the 10 Commandments at Mount Sinai was not only a religious event of spiritual transcendence, it was also the divine codification of a revolutionary life system that included economic principles and prosperity technologies that were thousands of years ahead of their time. The Sabbath rest mandate, for example, was not only a spiritual law, it was also a sophisticated principle of productivity and energy management that Napoleon Hill would rediscover millennia later. The crucial importance of regular rest and deep reflection to maintain creativity, mental clarity, and sustained effectiveness. The revolutionary laws of the sabbatical year, where every 7th year the lands should rest and all debts should be completely forgiven, established advanced principles of cyclical reinvention and systematic renewal that would keep prosperity flowing dynamically from generation to generation. These were not abstract religious concepts, divorced from practical reality. They were specific and applicable spiritual technologies for the creation, preservation, and multiplication of authentic wealth. During the following 2,000 years of forced diaspora that followed the destruction of the Second Temple, the Jewish people would face systematic persecutions, mass expulsions, and organized confiscations of their goods in practically every country where they tried to settle. But instead of breaking their spirit or destroying their capacity to prosper, these traumatic events further strengthened their revolutionary understanding of the true nature of lasting wealth. They learned, through the most brutal direct experience, that material possessions are temporary and vulnerable, but knowledge is eternal and indestructible. They learned that businesses can be confiscated by hostile governments, but authentic relationships and solid reputation travel with you anywhere. They learned that money can be stolen by thieves or tyrannies, but mental skills, thought systems, and spiritual technologies remain completely intact regardless of where you find yourself or what circumstances you face. First commandment: faith creates reality, the transformative power of unshakable belief. At the beating heart of Jewish tradition exists a revolutionary understanding that has puzzled philosophers and scientists for millennia. The reality we perceive with our physical senses is not fixed or immutable, but can be radically transformed through the creative power of properly applied faith. Abraham, the founding father of faith, was 99 years old when he received the divine promise that he would have a son. His wife Sarah was 90 years old and had been barren throughout her adult life. From any logical, medical, or statistical perspective available at that time, the promise was completely impossible, a cruel fantasy that defied all known laws of biology and probability. But Abraham possessed something that Napoleon Hill would identify and systematize centuries later as applied faith. It was not passive, sentimental, or merely emotional faith. It was active, dynamic, and transformative faith that had the supernatural power to convert the invisible into visible, the impossible into inevitable, the imagined into manifested. The Torah reveals to us that Abraham believed against all hope so that he became the father of many nations. This apparently simple phrase contains encoded one of the most powerful and practical secrets for wealth creation that has ever been revealed to humanity. Abraham did not only intellectually believe that he would have a son in the distant future, he acted, spoke, thought, and lived as if he already had the promised descendants. He changed his name from Abram, which means exalted father, to Abraham, which means father of multitudes. This was not a cosmetic or symbolic change. It was a powerful prophetic declaration that transformed his fundamental identity. Every time someone pronounced his new name, they were declaring and reinforcing the reality that he had first created in his mind and then manifested through his consistent actions. Napoleon Hill studied this same principle during decades of exhaustive research with America's richest men and called it autosuggestion, or subconscious mind programming. He discovered that all the millionaires he analyzed had an extraordinary capacity to see in their mind, with photographic clarity and complete sensory detail, the reality they desired to create, long before that reality manifested in the physical material world. But what Hill didn't initially know was that this principle had been the cornerstone of the Jewish mindset toward prosperity for thousands of years. Jewish sages had understood that the universe operates according to specific spiritual laws that respond to genuine faith, applied with clear intention, intense emotion, and consistent action. In the Talmud, Jewish sages taught that God created the entire world with 10 sacred declarations. Every time the divine voice declared, "Let there be light, let the waters be separated, let the earth produce green grass," it was demonstrating the fundamental creative power of the spoken word, backed by absolute and unshakable faith. The Jews understood deeply that, being created in the image and likeness of the Creator, they also possessed this same latent creative power. This revolutionary understanding became the philosophical and practical basis of their entire approach toward creating material and spiritual wealth. Before a Jewish merchant opened his first business, before a Jewish banker made his first loan, before a Jewish inventor created his first innovative product, they had already seen success in their mind with such vivid and convincing clarity that for them it was as real as if it had already occurred in the physical world. In the 19th century, a young Jew named Levi Strauss arrived in California during the gold rush with practically empty pockets, knowing no one on the new continent, not speaking English correctly, and having no idea where he would sleep that first night. But he had something infinitely more valuable than money, connections, or formal education. He had unshakable faith in his innate capacity to create extraordinary value in any situation. While thousands of desperate men searched for gold in dangerous mountains, hoping to get rich quickly, Levi had a different vision, an opportunity that only his applied faith allowed him to perceive clearly. The miners needed resistant clothing that could withstand the brutal conditions of their work, and he knew exactly how to provide it. Levi didn't have a modern factory. He didn't have experienced employees. He didn't have significant initial capital. He didn't have previous experience in the textile industry. But he had such a clear, specific, and convincing vision of his future success that he immediately began to act, speak, think, and relate as if he were already the prosperous and respected entrepreneur he desired to become. This consistently applied faith made other people begin to perceive and treat him the same way he saw himself. Suppliers gave him commercial credit, miners trusted the quality of his products, investors backed his innovative ideas. In a few years, Levi Strauss had created one of the most recognized and valuable brands in the world, Levi's. But it all began with faith so real and tangible that it transformed his invisible mental reality into visible material reality. To apply this first fundamental commandment in your daily life, you need to understand that faith is not something you simply have or don't have by genetic chance or family circumstance. Faith is something you develop consciously, something you practice systematically, something you strengthen day by day through specific rituals and proven mental disciplines. You must begin by writing your vision of wealth with such sensory and emotional detail that any other person could visualize it perfectly when reading your description. Describe not only how much money you will have, but exactly how you will earn it, how you will invest it wisely, how you will use it to serve others and contribute to the world's well-being. Then, like Abraham, like Levi Strauss, like all the great creators of authentic wealth in history, you must immediately begin to act as if that reality were already completely true at this moment. Second commandment, the value of knowledge, the most profitable investment of your life. In the narrow and crowded streets of the Warsaw Ghetto during the 18th century, while Jewish families crowded into tiny spaces and material poverty was a constant daily reality, there was something that shone more brightly than any treasure of gold or silver ever discovered: pure knowledge, practical wisdom, transformative education. In every Jewish home, no matter how humble their external economic condition, there were books, and not only sacred books or religious texts, but complete treatises on advanced mathematics, deep philosophy, practical medicine, precise astronomy, principles of commerce and negotiation technologies that had been refined during generations of successful application. This extraordinary scene was simultaneously repeated in every Jewish community scattered throughout the known world, from the commercial cities of Baghdad to the emerging neighborhoods of Brooklyn, from the financial centers of Prague to the commercial ports of Casablanca. While other peoples and cultures saw education as an exclusive luxury for the privileged or an optional activity for the rich, Jews considered it as basic and fundamental a necessity as food, water, or shelter. This radical difference in the valuation of knowledge would become one of the most determining factors of their extraordinary prosperity and their disproportionate influence in practically all industries where they decided to participate. Napoleon Hill, during his decades of meticulous research with the richest men of his era, discovered that all of them, without exception, had a surprising common characteristic. They were perpetual students, lifelong learners who had never stopped acquiring new knowledge. They had not ceased learning upon finishing their formal education in schools or universities, but had made continuous learning a personal obsession, a consuming passion, an unbreakable daily habit. Andrew Carnegie voraciously read every new development in metallurgy, economics, and industrial management. Henry Ford constantly studied new production techniques, operational efficiency, and consumer psychology. John D. Rockefeller stayed informed about every significant development in the global oil industry, international market fluctuations, and emerging technological innovations. But what Hill discovered subsequently surprised him even more deeply. This perpetual learning mindset and insatiable hunger for knowledge was not a modern innovation. Jews had practiced it systematically for complete millennia and had converted it into a sacred commandment that they religiously transmitted from parents to children as their most precious inheritance. In the Talmud, it is written with eternal wisdom, "Much have I learned from my teachers, even more from my fellow students, but most of all, from my students." This profound teaching reveals a revolutionary understanding of the dynamic nature of knowledge. It is not something static that is acquired once and kept as permanent possession, but a living river that flows constantly and is enriched exponentially with each authentic exchange, each curious question, each new perspective. Jewish tradition established as sacred law that every man, regardless of his main occupation or social status, should dedicate significant time each day to disciplined study. Not only religious study or spiritual contemplation, but practical study of everything that could make him wiser, more capable, more useful to his community, and more effective in creating value for the world. This systematic practice created complete generations of merchants who were also deep philosophers, bankers who were also respected scholars, artisans who were also innovative inventors, professionals who mastered multiple disciplines and could apply knowledge from one field to solve problems in another completely different one. When the Jews were brutally expelled from Spain in 1492, losing everything they had built during centuries of hard work, they could not take their beautiful houses, their fertile lands, their prosperous businesses, but they took something infinitely more valuable and portable: their accumulated knowledge, their practical wisdom, their thought systems, their value creation technologies. And with that pure knowledge as their only initial capital, they rebuilt their lives in new lands, created innovative businesses, established international commercial networks, and developed financial systems that would forever change world economic history. Knowledge had become their most portable, most productive, most powerful, and most indestructible capital. In the 19th century, a young German Jew named Marcus Goldman arrived in the United States with very little cash money, but with deep and specialized knowledge of the most sophisticated European financial systems. While other immigrants sought work in dangerous factories or brutal mines, Marcus applied his unique knowledge to identify an opportunity that only his specialized education allowed him to see clearly. There was an enormous and unmet need for financial services for small merchants that established large banks completely ignored. Marcus literally began walking through New York streets with a briefcase full of commercial promissory notes. His specialized knowledge of how to evaluate credit risk, how to structure beneficial loans, and how to create innovative financial instruments allowed him to build a business that would eventually become Goldman Sachs, one of the most powerful and influential investment firms in the world. To apply this second transformative commandment in your daily life, you must fundamentally change your relationship with knowledge. You cannot see it as something you acquire once during your formal education and then keep as a diploma on the wall. You must see it as your most important capital, which requires constant investment, meticulous care, and systematic application. Immediately establish a rigorous system of continuous learning. Dedicate at least 1 hour each day to studying something directly related to your professional field or to a new area that can exponentially expand your future opportunities. Read specialized books, take advanced courses, attend industry conferences, seek mentors who know significantly more than you in specific areas. Third commandment, the discipline of work, the spiritual technology of excellence. In the heart of Brooklyn's Jewish neighborhood, when the first lights of dawn barely begin to filter through the fogged windows, at 4 in the morning, when the city still sleeps in deep silence, Isaac Goldberg lights the lights of his small family bakery with the same ritual he has religiously repeated for 30 consecutive years. His hands, marked and hardened by decades of honest work, begin the sacred process he knows by heart, carefully mixing ingredients, kneading the dough with artisanal precision, baking each loaf with perfect attention. There are no cameras recording, no audience applauding, no public recognition. There is only him, his work, and an unbreakable discipline he has inherited from previous generations as his most precious treasure. Isaac doesn't consciously know that he is applying one of the most powerful principles that Napoleon Hill would identify in all the millionaires he studied during his exhaustive research. The supernatural capacity to consistently do what must be done, especially when he doesn't feel like doing it, when circumstances are difficult, when others have given up. This discipline of work is not simply an admirable work ethic or a respectable personal habit. It is a sophisticated spiritual technology for the systematic creation of authentic and lasting wealth. The Torah teaches us with absolute clarity that even God actively worked for 6 complete days to create the world in all its complexity and beauty, and then rested on the 7th day. This fundamental teaching establishes a revolutionary principle that completely transforms our understanding of work. Work is not a curse imposed by unfortunate circumstances, but a sacred way of actively participating in the continuous creation of the universe. It is a divine way of consciously associating with the creative forces of the cosmos, of contributing to the constant development and improvement of the world, of adding tangible value to the human experience. In the Talmud, it is written with eternal wisdom, "Great is work because it honors both the worker and the creator." This was not only an abstract moral teaching designed to make people feel better about their work circumstances. It was a deep and practical economic understanding. Authentic value is not created by chance, luck, or inheritance, but through disciplined, consistent, and intelligent work applied with clear purpose. But Jewish work discipline had unique and specific characteristics that radically differentiated it from simple mechanical industriousness or directionless physical effort. First, it was work with transcendent purpose. Each individual task, no matter how small or apparently insignificant, was perceived as a valuable contribution to the divine plan for world improvement. The Jewish shoemaker didn't just repair shoes to earn money. He was helping people walk comfortably along their unique life paths. The Jewish merchant didn't just sell products to obtain profits. He was connecting scattered communities, satisfying real needs, facilitating beneficial exchange between different cultures and regions. This transformative perspective converted work from a heavy obligation into an exciting opportunity, from an inevitable burden into a sacred privilege. And this fundamental mental transformation had extraordinary economic consequences. When you genuinely love what you do, when you see deep purpose in your work, when you feel you're contributing to something greater than your personal needs, your productivity multiplies exponentially in ways that defy all logical explanation. Napoleon Hill observed exactly this same pattern in all the millionaires he meticulously analyzed. They didn't work only for money or social recognition. They worked because they had found an authentic way to align their daily work with their deepest purpose, with their personal mission, with their unique contribution to humanity's well-being. Andrew Carnegie didn't build giant steel mills just to accumulate personal wealth. He genuinely believed he was building the industrial infrastructure that would enable accelerated progress of human civilization. Henry Ford didn't manufacture automobiles just to dominate a market. He was convinced he was democratizing transportation and liberating families from geographical limitations. The second unique and revolutionary aspect of Jewish work discipline was its unwavering focus on absolute excellence, not just mechanical efficiency or production speed. The sacred concept of Hidur Mitzvah taught that every task should be performed not only correctly according to minimum standards, but in the most beautiful, perfect, and excellent way humanly possible. This constant and relentless pursuit of excellence in all details created a solid reputation for superior quality that became a sustainable and practically inimitable competitive advantage. Jewish tailors in London were known and respected throughout Europe for the exceptional quality of their suits. They weren't necessarily faster than their competitors, but they were significantly more meticulous, more attentive to detail, more committed to perfection in every stitch. To apply this third transformative commandment in your professional life, you must begin by completely redefining your fundamental relationship with work. It cannot be something you do only to pay monthly bills or cover basic expenses. It must become your main vehicle for creating authentic value in the world, your platform for expressing your unique purpose, your tool for contributing to the well-being of other human beings. Specifically identify how your current work, regardless of what it is, directly contributes to the well-being, happiness, prosperity, or growth of other people. Find the deepest and most meaningful purpose behind what you do daily, and keep that inspiring vision always present in your consciousness while you work. Fourth commandment, the law of tithing and generosity, the counterintuitive secret of multiplied abundance. In the sacred mountains of Jerusalem, more than 3,000 years ago, while the brilliant stars of the desert illuminated the nocturnal silence with their eternal light, a young shepherd named David composed immortal psalms under the immensity of the infinite sky. One special night, while contemplating the vastness of the universe and meditating on the mysteries of existence, he received a divine revelation that would forever change his understanding of the true nature of authentic wealth. "The earth is the Lord's and everything in it," sang David with a voice that resonated through the valleys, "the world and all who dwell in it." This deep understanding was not only poetic or inspirational, it was fundamentally economic, practical, and revolutionary. David understood with crystal clarity that all true wealth flows constantly from an infinite and inexhaustible source, and that the secret to accessing that unlimited abundance was not clinging desperately to what you have, but consciously becoming a generous channel, not a selfish reservoir. This revelation would become one of the most counterintuitive but most powerful principles of Jewish prosperity. The more you give with joy and wisdom, the more you receive in unexpected and multiplied ways. When David became king and accumulated extraordinary riches that surpassed those of most monarchs of his era, he never forgot this fundamental lesson he had learned under the desert stars. He established the sacred principle of tithing not as a heavy religious obligation or spiritual tax, but as a practical spiritual technology to keep open the constant flow of divine abundance. David gave generously for the construction of the sacred temple, knowing with absolute certainty that his generosity would not diminish his personal wealth, but would multiply it in ways he couldn't even fully imagine. Napoleon Hill, during his decades of exhaustive research with America's richest men, discovered a pattern that initially puzzled him deeply. All of them, without exception, were extraordinarily generous with their time, money, knowledge, and resources. But most surprising was the timing of their generosity. They didn't give because they were rich, but rather they were rich because they had been giving consistently long before achieving prosperity. Andrew Carnegie donated most of his massive fortune to the construction of public libraries that would educate future generations. John D. Rockefeller established revolutionary foundations that forever transformed higher education and medical research. Henry Ford created innovative programs that directly benefited millions of workers and their families. But what Hill discovered afterward amazed him even more. These men had begun giving systematically long before having significant wealth. Their generosity was not the result of their prosperity, but the fundamental cause of their extraordinary success. And this principle had been the best-kept secret of Jewish prosperity for complete millennia. The Jewish law of tithing, known as Maser, established that 10% of all income should be consistently dedicated to charitable causes, community support, and world improvement. But this practice was not seen as a financial loss or obligatory expense, but as an intelligent investment in the universal system of abundance. Jewish sages taught with conviction that when you give with the right heart, with genuine joy, with faith in infinite abundance, you are planting powerful seeds that will multiply exponentially and return to you in forms you cannot even anticipate or imagine. This revolutionary understanding created an abundance mindset that became an extraordinarily powerful self-fulfilling prophecy. When you deeply believe you live in an abundant universe, when you consistently act as if there is enough for everyone, when you give generously without fear of scarcity, you are sending an unmistakable signal to your subconscious mind and the entire universe. I have more than enough, I have always had more than enough, and I will always have more than enough to satisfy my needs and help others. In the 18th century, the Rothschild family established a fundamental rule in all their international commercial operations. They should always leave something valuable on the table for the other party in each transaction. This philosophy of creating win-win situations was not only ethically correct according to their religious values, it was also strategically brilliant from a long-term business perspective. It created lasting and mutually beneficial business relationships, generated unwavering loyalty among partners and clients, and established an international reputation for integrity that automatically attracted the best opportunities and most valuable partners in the financial world. To apply this fourth transformative commandment in your life, you must begin giving before having material abundance. Don't wait to be rich to begin being generous. Immediately start giving a fixed percentage of your current income, no matter how small it may be. This act of faith in universal abundance will send a powerful signal to your subconscious mind and activate forces that will attract prosperity in unexpected ways. Fifth commandment, unity and community, the multiplying power of strategic collaboration. In a small ancient synagogue in Safed, in the mystical mountains of Galilee, during the 16th century, an extraordinary group of Jewish sages met religiously every Friday night to study the deepest and most transformative secrets of universal creation. Among these spiritual luminaries was Isaac Luria, whose revolutionary teachings about the fundamental interconnection of all things in the universe would forever change not only Jewish spirituality, but also their practical understanding of authentic prosperity. Luria taught with passion that all creation functioned as a giant and perfectly coordinated organism, where each individual part depended completely on all others for its survival, growth, and prosperity. When one part genuinely prospered, the entire organism benefited exponentially. When one part suffered or weakened, the entire organism experienced negative consequences. This mystical understanding would become the solid philosophical foundation of one of the most powerful and practical secrets of Jewish wealth, the transformative power of unified community working in harmony toward shared objectives. Napoleon Hill took complete decades to discover and systematize what he would call the mastermind principle. The revelation that when two or more minds unite consciously in perfect harmony toward a clearly defined common goal, they automatically create an invisible third mind that is exponentially more powerful, creative and intelligent than the mathematical sum of their individual parts. But Jews had been applying this revolutionary principle for complete millennia and had converted it into the unshakable foundation of all their economic, commercial, and financial activities. The Jewish concept of kahila, or sacred community, was not simply a casual group of people living geographically in the same area for convenience. It was a living organic entity where each individual member had specific and sacred responsibilities toward all other members, and where individual success was inextricably linked to the collective success of the entire community. In medieval European commercial fairs, while other merchants competed ferociously among themselves, often sabotaging each other with destructive tactics, Jewish merchants cooperated in sophisticated ways that completely perplexed their competitors. They shared valuable information about prices, product quality, and buyer reliability. They lent money to each other without interest when urgent opportunities arose. They unconditionally backed each other when facing temporary difficulties. This strategic cooperation was not naive altruism or sentimental goodness. It was extraordinarily sophisticated economic intelligence based on proven principles. Each Jewish merchant understood perfectly that his individual reputation was indissolubly linked to the collective reputation of all Jewish merchants in that region. The Rothschild family applied this principle of family unity in ways that completely revolutionized international finance. The 5 Rothschild brothers didn't establish competing independent banks in different European cities. They established a perfectly coordinated network that functioned as a single superintelligent organism with 5 specialized brains. To apply this 5th commandment in your life, you must fundamentally change your perspective on competition and collaboration. Instead of seeing others in your industry as enemies you must defeat, you must see them as potential partners with whom you can create greater value than any could generate individually. 6th commandment, the secret of the word, the creative power of conscious language. In the sacred silence of Mount Sinai, more than 3,000 years ago, an event occurred that would forever change humanity's understanding of the fundamental creative power of words. When Moses received the 10 Commandments directly from the divine source, he received not only abstract moral laws, but a profound revelation about the creative nature of language. By the word of the Lord the heavens were made, and all their host by the breath of his mouth. Jews understood with clarity that words are not simply sounds that come from the mouth or symbols written on paper, but powerful creative forces that actively shape internal and external reality. Napoleon Hill took decades to discover what he would call the power of autosuggestion, the capacity to systematically program the subconscious mind through repeated statements with intense emotion and absolute conviction. In Jewish tradition, words have coach, literal power to create or destroy, to bless or curse, to open doors of opportunity or close them permanently. This practical understanding of how words influence both our internal states and our external relationships. Jewish merchants developed exceptional reputations not only for the superior quality of their products, but for the impeccable quality of their words. They were known internationally for meticulously fulfilling everything they promised, for speaking honestly and constructively about competitors, and for using language to create trust and value instead of fear and manipulation. To apply this 6th commandment, you must take complete awareness of all the words that come from your mouth each day. Completely eliminate all negative speaking about yourself, your circumstances, your opportunities, or other people. Develop morning declaration rituals where you affirm your objectives as if they were already present reality. Seventh commandment, respect for time. The sacred administration of the most valuable resource for Jews, time is not an infinite line of identical and interchangeable moments, but a series of sacred and unique opportunities that once lost can never be recovered or replaced. When God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh, He established a fundamental pattern of work and rest, but also revealed the sacred and structured nature of time. Each moment has a specific purpose. Each hour has unique potential. Each day offers opportunities that will not exist tomorrow. Napoleon Hill observed that all millionaires had a unique relationship with time. They treated it as their most precious resource that should be invested wisely to generate maximum possible return. Medieval Jewish merchants developed a legendary reputation for their supernatural capacity to detect and seize opportunities that others didn't even perceive. They had developed a sophisticated understanding of the rhythms and cycles that govern all economic activity. Nathan Rothschild bought British government bonds when it seemed England would lose the war against Napoleon. His perfect timing converted that transaction into one of the most successful financial operations in history. To apply this commandment, treat time as your most valuable and irreplaceable resource. Develop rituals that clearly mark transitions between different types of activities and establish regular periods of rest that renew your energy and creativity. Eighth commandment, generational transmission, the legacy that transcends money. In Prague during the 16th century, a grandfather rabbi sits patiently with his 8-year-old grandson, teaching him not only the sacred letters of the Hebrew alphabet, but also the commercial secrets that have sustained his family for complete generations. This careful transmission is not accidental or informal. It is a meticulously designed system that Jews have perfected for millennia to ensure that each generation is more prosperous and wiser than the previous one. Hill observed that truly wealthy families were not those that simply accumulated money, but those that developed effective systems for transmitting both wealth and the wisdom necessary to preserve and multiply it. The Rothschild family not only built a financial empire, but also a system for transmitting it intact to their descendants. It established specific family rules that kept wealth and power concentrated for generations. To apply this commandment, think in multi-generational terms, even if you don't yet have children. Systematically document everything you learn about wealth creation and build networks of relationships that can benefit future generations. Ninth commandment, resilience in the face of adversity, transforming crises into catalysts. In the ghetto of Venice during the 17th century, while legal restrictions severely limited where they could live and what jobs they could perform, Jewish merchants developed an extraordinary capacity, transforming every obstacle into opportunity, every crisis into a catalyst for revolutionary innovation. This ability was forged in the fire of 3,000 years of persecutions that would have completely destroyed communities less resilient. Instead of breaking their spirit, each adversity strengthened their understanding of the fundamental principles that govern the creation of true wealth. When Jews were brutally expelled from Spain in 1492, they didn't lament as permanent victims. They saw the expulsion as an opportunity to expand their commercial operations to new territories they never would have explored voluntarily. The Warburg family lost most of their assets in Europe during World War II, but saw this as an opportunity to internationalize in ways they never would have considered in peacetime. Napoleon Hill observed that all truly successful individuals had developed what he called the ability to transmute defeat into victory. They possessed an almost supernatural capacity to find the hidden opportunity within every apparent setback, to extract valuable lessons from every failure, and to use every crisis as a stepping stone toward greater achievement. But what Hill discovered was that this mindset wasn't a modern innovation. It had been the secret weapon of Jewish prosperity for millennia. The Hebrew concept of Gam Zu Latova, this too is for good, represented a revolutionary approach to adversity that transformed victims into victors, obstacles into opportunities, and setbacks into setups for comebacks. During the Russian pogroms of the late 19th century, when Jewish communities faced systematic violence and destruction, many families saw these traumatic events not as endings, but as beginnings. They used the forced disruption as an opportunity to emigrate to America, where they would build some of the most successful businesses in American history. The Lehman Brothers arrived in America as refugees with nothing but their knowledge and determination. Instead of dwelling on what they had lost, they focused entirely on what they could build. Their experience with adversity had taught them invaluable lessons about risk management, diversification, and the importance of maintaining liquid capital, lessons that would serve them well in building one of America's most prominent financial institutions. To apply this ninth commandment, fundamentally change your relationship with difficulties. See them as specialized universities that teach exactly the skills necessary for your next levels of success. When faced with setbacks, immediately ask yourself, what is this teaching me? How is this preparing me for something greater? What opportunities does this open that I couldn't see before? 10th commandment, prosperity as purpose, the transcendent meaning of wealth. In the final pages of the Talmud is found a statement that summarizes the deepest Jewish understanding about the true nature of wealth. Who is rich? One who rejoices in his portion and uses his prosperity to elevate the world. This teaching reveals the final and most powerful secret. Prosperity is not an end in itself, but a means to fulfill the highest purpose of human existence. Napoleon Hill took decades to discover the definite major purpose. Lasting success only comes when your financial objectives are aligned with a purpose that transcends personal benefit. The concept of tikkun olam, repairing the world, established that every human being had a specific mission to leave the world better than they found it. Prosperity was seen as one of the most powerful vehicles for fulfilling this sacred mission. When Andrew Carnegie wrote The Gospel of Wealth, he was expressing a principle that Jewish families had practiced for centuries. Wealth without purpose becomes a burden, but wealth with purpose becomes a blessing that multiplies exponentially. The Rothschild family didn't accumulate wealth for its own sake. They saw themselves as stewards of resources that could be used to fund education, support the arts, advance scientific research, and improve conditions for countless people around the world. Albert Einstein, when asked about his motivation for his scientific work, replied that he wanted to understand God's thoughts. This wasn't religious sentiment. It was an expression of the Jewish understanding that intellectual and material success should serve the highest possible purposes. Modern Jewish philanthropists like Bill Gates, though not Jewish himself, he exemplifies this principle, have embraced the idea that accumulating wealth is only the first step. The real achievement lies in using that wealth to solve humanity's greatest challenges. To apply this 10th commandment, define clearly the highest purpose that will guide all your efforts toward prosperity. It must be a specific vision of how you will use your wealth to contribute to the world's well-being. This purpose will give meaning to your financial goals and attract the resources necessary to achieve them. Your transformation begins now. You now have complete understanding of these 10 commandments, united as an integral system of wealth creation proven during 3,000 years of human history. These commandments aren't just about money, they're about becoming the person who naturally attracts abundance in all areas of life. When you apply them correctly, you'll transform not only your bank account, but your relationships, your health, your purpose, and your contribution to the world. Wealth is not accident, luck, or chance. It's the natural manifestation of disciplined application of spiritual and mental laws that have governed human prosperity since the dawn of civilization. My challenge to you is simple but transformative. Choose one of these commandments that most resonates with you at this moment and begin applying it immediately. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait until next week. Begin now with faith, with discipline, with the same determination that has characterized the Jewish people for millennia. If you choose the first commandment, write your vision of prosperity with such detail that you can see and feel it completely. If you choose the second, buy a book that expands your knowledge and begin reading it this very night. If you choose the third, complete a task with a standard of excellence that exceeds all expectations. Don't stop with a single commandment. Once you've integrated the first into your daily life, add the second, then the third. Gradually build a complete system of prosperity that becomes your natural way of thinking, feeling, and acting. Share this transformative knowledge with others who can also benefit. Become a link in the chain of transmission that has preserved this wisdom for millennia. You have the keys to the kingdom of authentic prosperity. The question that remains is, what will you do with this extraordinary knowledge? If you've come this far, if you've stayed with me throughout this entire journey, through the deepest secrets of human prosperity, then I already know what your answer will be. You will begin. You will apply. You will transform. You will prosper. Comment below which of these 10 commandments you plan to implement first in your life. Subscribe to this channel to continue receiving wisdom that can take you to extraordinary levels of success. Share this video with someone you know could benefit from this millennial wisdom. The secrets of Jewish wealth are no longer secrets to you. They are powerful tools awaiting your immediate application. Use them wisely to create the prosperous world we all deserve to live in. This is your moment. These are your commandments. Now go and make them reality.